A preview of the Alabama legislative session and changes in Clay City government. Tribune Unscripted starts now. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Tribune Unscripted on not our normal day.
Right, not our normal day.
On Monday, we actually are doing the show because this year Christmas and New Year's both fell on our normal show day, which is Thursdays at noon. So, but we wanted to do a show in between to kind of cover the things that are happening.
Our holiday special.
That's right. It's our holiday special. We're not going to talk about anything holiday related.
We're really not.
All right, what is coming just around the corner is the state legislative session. And so we really haven't visited with Paul DeMarco in a while.
Right.
And so we asked Paul to join us. He's joining us by Zoom today so that we can kind of cover all things legislative session for coming up
we're always
for Alabama.
We're always excited to have our award-winning political columnist.
That's right.
Paul delivers with the APA awards for the Tribune every single year.
Does.
It has great insight. He's been there. He knows what's going on. He's involved with Jefferson County politics, with state politics. So we're fortunate to have Paul and have his insight.
All right, let's get started. Paul, thanks for being with us today. We have had a nice holiday season.
No, I did. Belated Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance.
All right. Well, where do you want to get started today?
Well, Paul, let's start, if we could, with it. And I'm just going to ask you to share rumor mill stuff that you're hearing on the grapevine. Two issues that we know, there's going to be a lot of issues that come up in the upcoming session, but two that we know will come up. One will be the situation with the AHSAA. What are you hearing from your folks in Montgomery?
Thank you, Scott. And you're right. There's a lot to talk about looking back at 2025, and then we can talk about the upcoming year, 2026. A lot of political issues, a lot of headlines coming up in 2026. As for this issue, there's been so much discussion. It is being litigated, but as we well know, sometimes litigation gets resolved by legislation, and I think there's enough pressure from legislators to try to get something done on that. Usually in an election year, this is an election year, you don't see anything happen, but it looks like this may be one of the issues that really pushes through because there's just so much interest, and I don't see a lot of lawmakers saying, hey, this is one I'm willing to stand up and vote no if there's enough folks who want to see some sort of change. Again, this is different from saying we don't support our public schools because it's related to that. So this may be one of the issues that we do see make it through between January and April when lawmakers adjourn before the election or the party primary elections in May.
Paul, I know one of the driving issues on the AHSAA side is feelings among some member schools that private schools have an advantage, that they can recruit. With school choice, I don't think that's ever been a bigger non-factor because literally any kid in Alabama can apply for the school choice funds. But they've kind of convinced themselves within the AHSAA room that this is a really unbalanced, unfair thing. What we're hearing now is there is serious discussion about separating the private schools into their own division, which I think they should probably do anyway. They could still play in the regular season against each other. But is that what you think AHSAA is trying to do, create some legislation within their organization that might stop the state or at least pause the state?
Well, what you may see also with litigation going on saying, hey, where can we resolve this? Where can we settle this? I mean, most legislation gets resolved by some sort of resolution that both parties say, okay, we've worked it out. So maybe, that's what's going on in the meantime, saying, look, we don't want a judge's side. We don't want something passed that we can't live with. So let's find some sort of compromise we get passed. But I do think the folks who want to see it passed, they want to see it passed this session, which means saying, hey, we're going to sit down at the table. Let's really work this out now. We're going to move forward and try to pass something that you may not be resolved. Now, the litigation could go on for a couple of years. And so that's why I think there's really talk about, hey, can it be done in the next 3 or 4 months?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But now the issue that we had with this group and the Choose Act during football season, will there be anything specific to that?
Well, there's already an injunction telling AHSAA that
They
they
can't.
cannot sideline kids over Choose Act money.
Right.
So that's still in force at this moment. I guess we'll just have to see how the litigation plays out, or as
Okay.
Paul said, does legislation change all of this up?
Okay. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, I think the next thing we're going to talk about is SSUT.
Yeah, and I bet Paul's hearing the same rumors I'm hearing, which is there will be no discussion of raising the 8 cent, 8.25% online sales tax to 10%. I've been told by enough legislators, and Paul, you could count the years in a quadrennium. They're like, we will not be talking about that this year.
That doesn't fix the problem.
No, but it could help. It could go a long way towards helping fix it. However, I am hearing optimism from legislators, Paul, that they do feel like they can do something about these apps where people are purchasing online from actually local brick and mortar stores, and it's getting kicked into the online bucket. They do feel like they can probably get that portion resolved. Are you hearing that?
Well, it's like a little bit like we just talked about. Litigation sometimes drives a resolution through legislation.
Right.
And with the lawsuit going on, and you had other cities being added to that litigation, places like Mobile and Mountain Brook, in addition to Tuscaloosa. Again, is there some sort of resolution? Go ahead.
Supporting Tuscaloosa as well.
Yeah.
But not financially, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Does that drive some sort of resolution that was not getting talked about because there weren't enough people at the table? Now that you've got other cities saying they want to see it happen, can you get a compromise that will resolve it at the court as well at the State House?
I noticed Albritton's comments last week regarding this, and listen, I like Albritton. I'll give him full credit for, he's very candid about what he's thinking, and he will say it publicly, and he doesn't really care what anybody thinks about it. I mean, this is the guy who has openly said, I represent the Porch Creek Indians in Montgomery because they're in his district. But he is clearly taking the side with the county commissions, the Alabama County Commission Association. I think this may be one of the things that really comes back to bite Albritton, and I think it might come back to bite the counties. And Paul, I don't understand why they stepped into the fight anyway. I don't see their percentage changing very much, no matter what.
Well, and also I saw him interviewed
Yeah.
too on a television station, and I feel like his information is wrong.
Well,
Because he's kind of coming from that whole perspective of, if we try to mess with this and change things, we could lose it altogether.
yeah,
And Mayor Maddox, and we've said several times, that's not
that's
true.
not going to happen. And
I mean, that's not true.
Well, that's exactly why I said that Albritton is representing the Alabama County Commission Association. That entire myth came from their conference over the summer, from their lobbyists who told them, oh, it could all disappear.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, and it will not happen because it is a growth revenue that the state of Alabama desperately needs. They're not going to allow it to be shut down. And so, Paul, why? Again, I come back to this. Why would the counties want to go to battle with their cities? How in the world did Sonny Brassfield talk them into taking this position?
Well, you got to go look back at the origin of, how commerce has changed and what's been going on in the state. I get back to that, but the county commission and Sonny Brassfield, give them credit. They're very powerful in Montgomery. However, what could change all of this is, again, if a judge says, I can tell you, I've been in enough courthouses over the past 30 years, a judge is going to want them to try to get this resolved without making a decision. If not, it's going to end up at the Alabama Supreme Court. So this is, again, another one where a judge is going to look at the parties and say, y'all go get this worked out, or you're going to force me to issue an order. I'm going to have to take sides. And then one of y'all can take it up to the Alabama Supreme Court, and then the decision will be made. So it depends. Do these parties really feel they can find some middle ground to get this resolved, or will it take a decision by the Alabama Supreme Court? Or to put this to resolve this, because I don't know if the legislature will be able to get something done on it. So it depends. Can the parties themselves sit down and work something else before it's resolved by court?
The cities, and this is my opinion, Bob, but I'd be interested in your thought. In my view, this is not a fight the cities can afford to walk away from. They have got to fight to the death on this because it's that important to all of them.
Well, if you look at some of the elected officials in some of these cities and they talk about the money that they're losing, and you look at the impact of inflation and the loss of different dollars, and look, the Alabama state legislature has passed record budgets, but we've already heard there's going to be a real concern about what the general fund budget, which will in turn mean less money for the cities. You look what's happened with the gasoline tax, where some of those monies have gone. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on cities in balancing their budgets in the next couple of years, and that's why you're not going to see the cities just walk away from this. They've got to feel that they've reached some sort of resolution that means more monies in their coffers.
Paul, one more issue I wanted to ask you about. We haven't talked much about this, but the Western bypass, or the Western Highway, Western Corridor, I should say. Governor Ivey seems bound and determined. That was a campaign promise to those folks to go along with the gas tax. That's what I believe. She seems bound and determined to try to make that happen with zero federal matching funds, which could mortgage over half of the gasoline tax revenue for the next 20 to 30 years. Do you see anybody, do you see the legislature stepping in and trying to stop that? They voted for it originally, and now a lot of them are very unhappy that this is going forward.
Well, when legislators look at the projects, I mean, look at Jefferson County and the Northern Beltline, that could not get built without federal dollars.
Right.
So if you look across the state at other projects, I mean, look, I sat in traffic probably like, 98% of your viewers on I-65 the other day. And, obviously it is getting widened there in Calera. But, I think the question is, what is going to not happen? And you look at what Senator Tuberville, what will he do? What will his priorities? And I know transportation will be priorities. So will he come in as well? Because I don't know if we're going to hear anything from legislators or what they will do. I mean, at this point, we have a transportation system that operates the way it does. I've heard complaints from some legislators, but whether they would take the next steps to try to change the way it's done, the governor has so much power when it comes to how transportation dollars are spent in this state. And I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon.
Okay.
Those were my three biggies.
My last question was, is there anything that people are not talking about that you think is going to pop up in this
session?
Yeah.
When we look at 2026, there's several issues. Obviously, you've got the election. You've got, to me, there are about three big issues. Obviously, it's an election year. You've got some contested races. I think Senator Tuberville is the prohibitive favorite to win governor, but the rest of the constitutional officers are all contested, and you've got all 140 members of the state legislature, where you see some surprises there. Secondly, Kay Ivey's last year in office. What priorities will she do in her last year in office? We'll hear her state of the state will be in a couple of weeks. What will she do? Thirdly, redistricting will be a big headline. I mean, we've had redistricting issues here across the state, whether it was congressional redistricting, what's happened in Jefferson County that was stayed, that would have potentially changed the makeup of Jefferson County. And then at the state Senate, you've got a potentially new map down there. So when the Supreme Court rules next June, could the legislature go back in special session and redraw some maps? And what will that mean for the state? So redistricting will be one of those big issues next year. And some folks say, that's just not interesting, but it's important no matter where you live, how you redistrict. So I think those will be some of the three biggest political headlines in 2026.
Well, Paul, we appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule and just kind of doing that preview with us today.
Glad to be with y'all both. Hope you and everybody, your readers and viewers, have a great Happy New Year.
All right, you too.
Happy New Year
to you, Paul. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a minute with the rest of the day's news. Stay with us. Have you been to Discount Warehouse lately? New electronics, brand name makeup, and bedding arrive daily. Follow their Facebook page to find out about special sales on clothing, tools, and fireworks. Discount Warehouse, where you will never pay retail price.
Ah, now this is the life. Who's a good boy? Well, to tell you the truth, it's my humans. They're the ones who made sure to buy me a home with natural gas. The furnace warms like no other. The fire turns on instantly. Whoa. And I'm happier than a beagle in a bacon factory. Oh, that's the spot. And with the money we save on our energy bill, well, I got big plans for that. Visit my website and learn why natural gas is a home's best friend.
Welcome back, everybody. All right, let's turn to Trussville specifically. So while we were out, there was a shooting in Trussville that's very unusual.
Very unusual.
So just that happening was big news here. And unfortunately, a man did die. It was in the vicinity of Velma's, which is a popular night spot location on Highway 11. Where now that there's been several stories, it appears that maybe an altercation from inside the bar came outside, and there ended up being somebody who was not in the bar that was, I guess, involved, right?
We really don't know any of that.
The shooting took place like in the next door parking lot, essentially.
We don't know that either. We don't know that either. We have, I'm gonna just back up a little bit.
Okay.
We know the people, some of the people involved were regulars at Velma's. Velma's has said, their attorney has said there was no altercation inside ahead of time, that it did not take place on Velma's property. I don't have any reason to doubt the attorney or the owner of Velma's. This is what the Trussville police told us. Okay. When they arrived, they found the shooting victim in a grassy area adjacent to the Velma's parking lot. When I asked the police early on, did the shooting take place inside Velma's or outside in the parking lot, I was told the parking lot. Now, understand that was very early in the investigation. Police had been there all night.
Right.
The sun was not up yet while I was talking to police. So when we came back after because we heard from the owner of Velma's that said it didn't happen here, it happened in the parking lot, the veterinarian's parking lot next door. And I don't have any reason to doubt her. I think her name's Tammy Butler. I don't have any reason to doubt Ms. Butler's statement on that. I know that they've reviewed their videotapes. I know this. The veterinarian's office was not open at 1 a.m. in the morning, and so they didn't have anything to do with this.
No, and the attorney's letter just specifically says the shooting occurred in a parking lot adjacent to Velma's.
Yeah, there's a little tree line that separates them. This is the point I would make, and I would say to all parties involved, and that is I have never seen a bullet that knows where a property line is or a city limit line is, because we get this kind of stuff from our mayors sometimes. They're like, no, that really wasn't in ours. It's a block outside our city, just the same zip code.
Right.
So, and I get that. They want it to be accurate. We want it to be accurate. At this point, I think the issue is we very rarely have homicides in Trussville, as you mentioned. The only other one we've had in 2025 was actually charged as a manslaughter on a drug overdose. The last one I remember before that was probably the Cracker Barrel shooting and the two Trussville teenagers where one was shot and killed. That was several years ago. Really, homicides are very rare in any of the cities the Tribune covers. This is a very safe area of town, but they do happen, and they happen for a lot of different reasons. We'll continue to follow this. Kanan Isaac Harper, 24. Was arrested. He is currently in the Jefferson County Jail. There was an Anaya's Law hearing this morning, was my understanding, to see whether or not he'll be held without bond or the judge will put a bond up for him to bond out if he can raise the money. We've also covered a GoFundMe campaign for the victim, and I thought we had the victim's name.
We do. That's 32-year-old Christian White. Who died.
Yeah.
And there is a story at TrussvilleTribune.com about Christian, and there's a link to that GoFundMe account to assist his family with funeral expenses for him.
I would just say to everyone that over the course of the trial, that's when testimony will come out. If it gets to a trial, and based on what I know, I think I don't have any reason to believe it won't go to trial. That's when the details of what happened, how it happened, what led to it will come out. We do know a young lady who said she was the shooters, or the alleged shooters. I think she referred to him as an ex-boyfriend. We do know she filed for a protective order the day after the shooting, or the Monday following the shooting, I should say. And so I think she was there that night. That's my understanding. Okay. Again, I'm sharing stuff that have come from what I consider reliable sources, but I'm not willing to go into a lot of detail because I don't know a lot of detail, and that's why we'll have the trial and it'll come out. I can tell you this.
Very sad thing to see.
Yeah, I will mention this. When all this came up, when we got the call and we're working on the story originally, I did ask the Trussville police officer that we deal with, has Velma's been a nuisance place? Because we've had that in the past, where liquor licenses were pulled because the property, the police determined it was council. Council actually determined after talking to the police that it was a nuisance. The response to me was they don't pop up much, and there was nothing in Velma's history that made the officer feel like they were a nuisance. Now, I did not ask him to go back, and because we could do this, we could ask, can you run all the calls you've done to that address in the last year, 2 years, 3 years? And we may do that at some point, but I'll just tell the public, based on the conversations I've had, I don't think this is a nuisance place. I don't think it's a place where a lot of trouble takes place, or they've had issues with things like this in the past. I think it's probably an isolated incident. I think it's very tragic. This young man, I think, was the father of 2 children, and I don't know anything that's going to happen at a bar that should cost somebody their life, and it's just a tragic, heartbreaking situation. And this young man that's been arrested, 24 years old, whole life in front of him, and his life is going to be very different as well now. So we'll follow the story as we do. As I mentioned, Jacob is actually at the courthouse this morning to be there for that hearing that was scheduled. We'll update as soon as we have information on it, but that's kind of where it all sits right now.
Okay. Well, let's turn to Trussville City Council. So they met after our last show. A couple of things to talk about there. Number one, they seem to be changing their work session schedule. They used to meet on
Tuesdays.
Thursday
before the Tuesday meeting.
There you go. Okay. And now it looks like they're doing that work session before the official meeting, which I've covered city councils for a long time, and that was a regular thing.
Yeah,
and it's super convenient.
Different cities do it different ways. Trussville is the only city we cover that doesn't do it immediately before the council meeting.
Right.
And that was before I got here. They started that, so I'm sure they had a reason for it. I think the council might like to try this out.
Yeah.
I mean look, these guys all knew when they ran for office that it's quite a commitment, if you're elected council.
Right.
But that does tie them up 4 weeks out of the month as opposed to 2 weeks out of the month. And a lot of people don't realize, on top of council meetings, every council person is assigned multiple committees that they chair or serve as a liaison to. Some of those committees, planning and zoning is one that comes to mind, are very involved, detailed, and can be long meetings. And they also have
work sessions and regular meetings.
They do. They've got all of that.
It's a lot.
So I think if this can work out, it can make things a little easier on the Trussville Council members.
I think it's less confusing for citizens, because I think just your run-of-the-mill citizen who wants to go to a meeting and maybe doesn't know all the ins and outs, they're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And it just is easier if you say work session starts at this time, followed by our meeting, and I think it's easier for people to understand.
That part is easier. I agree with you completely on that. Here's where it may be interesting.
Okay.
We often reported on the work sessions.
Yeah.
Because that was a separate meeting. We'd report on that. Well, the work session was setting up the agenda on Thursday, was setting up the agenda for the following Tuesday council meeting, which meant we were able to report on a lot of items that were going to come up on Tuesday.
Right.
And that gave citizens a chance to reach out to council members and say, hey, I saw y'all talked about this in work session. I know it's coming up Tuesday. Here's what I feel about it. Or I have questions about it
Yeah.
before you vote on it. Can you tell me about it? Yeah. So you'll lose that. And,
Yeah.
and I do think that has been good for Trussville and good for our council and mayor to have a few days to hear from the public. Doesn't necessarily have to change that dynamic, but they'll lose that gap that they have. I still think, as much as we ask our counselors to do, and we don't pay them much money. I know that it comes up every election, and we got folks out there that think they're making a bundle serving on council. They're not. They're barely covering their gas money. So I'm kind of in favor of anything that can make their life a little bit easier, because this is almost just a massive volunteer job that they're doing for their city. But also worry a little bit about having that gap.
To your point, though, a
Thursday
lot of times things that are discussed in work session are not always immediate, especially
right.
that might be.
Sometimes it might be a week or two anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
and people end up with that room anyway, especially if it's something that is a little bit more controversial.
Yeah, and if the council feels like they want a little more time to hear from their constituents,
Yeah,
they
can
could always say, let's table it for this week and put it on next week's agenda.
And it gives people that
Yeah,
chance.
but they're kind of relying on their gut feeling at the moment. Whereas
That's a really
if
good
it's
point.
a big issue on a Thursday, reporting from a workshop, by the Tuesday meeting, they've seen enough on social media to kind of know maybe we should pause this, maybe we should talk about some other things involving this. So there's pros and cons either way.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean a little toward, if we make their life easier, because I know how much they put in. The good ones
that's a lot of
put
meetings.
in a ton of time and money to serve, to do this, personal money, because they're covering other stuff to be there. So anything we can do to make it easier, I kind of lean that way.
One thing that they continue to discuss at these meetings that we've talked about here is the appointment process for committees, specifically for the school board appointment process too. And so one thing that came up at this meeting was term limits. And so that's going to be interesting. There's some differing opinions from different council people on term limits, and if you had them, when would current people who are currently serving, when would that start for them? So anyway, there's a lot of interesting things to watch there.
Yeah, and a lot of elements are involved in this discussion. Let's start with the positive. This city council, for the election or before they decided to run, identified that the appointment process for school board members at Trussville needed some work. That has come up in almost every single election since we started the school system. Yeah. I'm not sure every council member is necessarily fully aware of why some of these issues are issues, because, and I'll talk about the term limit stuff. That actually came up, the first time I started hearing people talk about was probably about 10 years into our school board. And there were issues arising that people started like, we need some term limits here. And so sometimes you understand that this is an issue for people and they're talking about it, but you may not know the history of it, so you may not fully understand how it became an issue. And I've reached out to some council people and just said, if you need any background, call me. I'm not going to interject myself, but if you need some background, call me, because the history may help, just knowing it.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed with this council's commitment to try to get it right. I think they've got a pretty clear view of some of the issues, most of them, not all of them. I think maybe one or two, or maybe one, is still kind of struggling with why certain issues are issues, but I think they've done a pretty good job as a group identifying what they want to focus on, identifying what they think they need to improve on. The most encouraging thing to me is all they're really talking about now is the committee, who would sit on the committee to review the applications and then make recommendations. They've kind of agreed on everything beyond that point, that it would go to council, that the finalist would sit through public interviews.
Yeah, that was a big one.
I think it's huge, no matter almost, and I do think it matters what they do with this committee to review the applications. I do think that matters. But almost no matter what they decide there, I think they have put a rock solid process in place once it comes out of there. Okay. And I've said this before, and I would say this again to the council, if you can't get to a comfort level on that, and the mayor and I have talked about this many times over the last couple of months. So he knows that that this is an idea that I think could be a solution, and I don't think he necessarily thinks it's not a solution. He's just trying to let the council do their job here. But the council, because the state constitution gives the council the authority to appoint school board members on an autonomous board like this. It is their responsibility. The council could always say, we're just going to form a committee of the whole. All 5 of us are going to review the applications, and we'll come up with a method to vote on what we're looking at, and then that'll create the finalists. So if they can't get on the same page in terms of who they'd like to serve on the committee, it's perfectly okay for the council to say, you know what, we're just going to do it ourselves. And they can do that. So that's an option. But the conversation has been a little up and down because they're trying to kind of figure out what can we do, what can we not do, what works, what sounds good, but maybe sounds good on paper but wouldn't work in reality. I think they're doing an outstanding job having this conversation and working through these issues. And I just think this group is going to be a very good council as they continue to get their feet under them and kind of get a feel of what's going on. They're on the right track at this point. I think 90% of the process is kind of decided on, and I love the approach. I love the approach.
Back to the work session thing. Are they meeting for work session in the big room or in the side room?
They're in the big room, and it's open to the public.
Okay.
And I will say credit to Mayor Short. They have started live streaming the work session. That was not always done in the past. In fact, I don't think it was ever done. That's a big deal because that's where
all the conversation
happens. Where the conversation happens. That's why our reporters are always there for work sessions, because that's really where the conversation. But that is a huge step towards more and more transparency. Mayor Short has that mentality anyway. You'll notice over the last 5-year terms, he was not a councilman I was picking on very much because he was so open and honest about what was going on. I think that's what the people of Trussville want. I think it's good for our city. I think this is going to be a really good group as they get more and more comfortable kind of in their skin, so to speak.
All right, let's turn to city government and Clay. We've been watching this to see what was going to happen because Clay has, for a long time now, operated with a city manager style, sort of a mayor, city manager, what would you call that? It was not a true city manager as far as it was different.
They could title it any way they wanted to. It did not require legislative action to do what they did.
Usually it does to put a city manager in place. This is a little bit different.
Yeah, my understanding is it worked in part because the mayor had to agree to it, and then the council voted in support of it, and they went with it.
Now with a new mayor in place, that's changing.
That's changing. Well, the city manager was Ronnie Dixon, who is now working for the mayor of the city of Leeds. Right. So the position was open. I think the council can make some decisions, but I also think the mayor has to agree to shift to this. And that's my understanding. We probably need to get a little more clarification. I think our folks are trying to get a little more now, but for the moment, the council is not going to fill that position. And I think, that's a situation where the council and mayor are kind of trying to figure out how do we work together going forward. It's somewhat of a divided group right now in terms of ideology, but I think they will come together and figure out what's
Mayor
best
Anderson said
for
here
Clay.
in our forums that she would want to not have a city manager.
Right.
She was interested in operating a different way. So.
But again, the council is the legislative branch. And so there's got to be an agreement with everybody to make it happen or to keep it from happening, I would guess. So we'll see how that plays out. I do think Mayor Anderson plans to be more of a full-time mayor and be at City Hall trying to run the show.
Okay. All right, let's talk about also in Clay, they've had this work that's been going on for a while on Old Springville Road in Clay. And you drove through that area this week, but that's open, and I know that that's really helpful for people that travel that road regularly.
It is, and I will tell you, we've been reporting on it forever. It just hit me one day that I'd not had Legends Barbecue in a while, and was it Legends or they changed the name? Barbecue Stop. it started off as a Legends, but had not had it in a while, and I was a big fan, and I was just craving it. So I took off down that road, forgetting about the detour, hit it, and started to follow the traffic. That was quite the detour. you really had to work to get around it.
Yeah.
And I think that probably affected the barbecue stop, who ultimately closed. I went through, they did a lot of serious work, and the construction will continue, but the road is open. So you'll see construction crews, you might see flagmen, stuff like that. So be cautious as you go through. But it's open. That's a big deal for our folks in Clay.
All summer
it
and fall.
really was a difficult detour because that's such an important corridor anyway for citizens, not just that live in Clay, but the surrounding communities. And again, probably lost a great barbecue place out of that deal, but it's open. It's nice to just get on it and end up at the other end the way you wanted to.
The way you're supposed to.
The way you're supposed to. So progress being made there, and I think that was some very serious work that I think it turned into a much bigger project once they got into it.
Okay.
But that'll make everybody's life a little easier after Christmas for sure.
And the last thing we wanted to highlight, because this did happen like the day of our last show, was Moody High School in the city of Moody, and Moody School, the city of Moody, cut the ribbon for Moody High School's new gymnasium. Right. Which that is that's just phase one of a $60 million 3-phase campus improvement project. We've talked a lot about that. That was something that voters approved for through a property tax referendum. And we've got video of that. It's a beautiful gymnasium, opened just in time for their basketball season. And I know that the community, as you can tell, was packed anyway, that they were really happy about that.
And as you said, this is the first plum of several that are coming. The high school is coming out of the ground. It's looking great. That won't be long. Then I think the third project will be renovation of the Performing Arts Center. Maybe they're building a new one, but I think it's a renovation. I'll have to check with Dr. Walters on that and get a clarification. Remember, Moody was the first, I'm going to call it a school zone because everything's zoned, elementary, middle school that will empty up into Moody High School, was the first school zone to vote to raise their own property taxes. That was new legislation offered by the state. Moody put it on the ballot the first time they could. It was close, but it passed. And they are seeing the fruits of that decision. The high school, the new building it's out of the ground. It's up. It's looking good. The gym open for basketball. Performing Arts is coming. That is one of our fastest growing cities in the Tribune coverage area. Is an outstanding city in every respect. Drawing really great people. I don't see any slowdown in Moody's future. In fact, we need to have some conversations with Dr. Walters and with Mayor Rutledge if we can get him in here, because he's supposed to be in here last two shows. Maybe we can get him in here soon.
Around in November. It was the ribbon cutting that canceled him on the last show.
Yeah, well, we had a reporter there, Mayor, and he still made it back to Tribune Unscripted on time. So I think, we need to get you a police escort. We got friends in the PD, Moody PD, get you over. But we do want to get Nick in so we can talk about a lot of things. But one of the things, and I'm just saying this to everybody in Moody, if you are not prepared for growth, you better get ready, because this new high school, first of all, remember this, Moody is a very high-performing high school. These schools do very well. That's why people are moving out there. Now you're about to open a brand-new facility. Y'all have no idea how popular you're about to be. And you think you've been popular? That's about to step up a notch or two. I'm excited about Moody. I'm excited about what's going on there. I think it's just a plum of a city. I really do.
It's going to be fun to see the rest of that. Like you said, that those 3 phases open up all the way. So anyway. All right, that's everything we've got for today. Again, we won't be here this Thursday for New Year's Day, but we'll be back on our normal schedule the next week.
Right.
So the following Thursday.
Right. So, a little ball game we need to watch this Thursday.
Yeah, that's true. But in the meantime, the Rose Bowl. In the meantime, all your news is always live at trustfultribune.com. We hope you have a safe and wonderful new year, and we'll be back with you next week in 2026. See you then.
If you don't have a will, trust, or some kind of estate plan, you're leaving your loved ones with a lot of headaches. Probate fees and tax issues bring stress to your family while they grieve your loss. Cahaba Law Group is here to protect them and give you reassurance that your hard-earned money and assets are not lost to bureaucratic mayhem. They can help you create the ideal estate plan. If you're currently in probate, Cahaba Law Group can help assist you there too. Plus, they can handle more than just probate. They can serve you in just about any legal matter. Begin now by scheduling a consultation at cahabalaw.net.
I'm Drew Lawley, General Manager at Courtesy Buick GMC. Come see us at Courtesy, where we have over 300 vehicles to choose from, including GMCs, Buicks, and certified pre-owned vehicles. Come see us at Courtesy or check us out at courtesybirmingham.com. Proud supporter of our area high school teams.